Good morning. It's Monday morning again. So we're going to focus on this slave trade question, and it's a compulsory question in the exam that we have to do. So we're going to spend quite a lot of time on this. So a little reminder: we've come to the end of year 12, I suppose, our year 12 unit. We're going to move on with me into looking at the American civil rights after this week, and obviously you got Germany, and you're going to do the coursework, Mr. Traingrove. So this is the question that we looked at last week. This is a question we're going to try and answer. And as I said, the question is very, very similar every year. The only thing that changes is the bit in bold. So it doesn't really matter which one we practice because we've got to talk about all the things anyway, really. Here are the two extracts. Make sure you've got those printed off, or at least you've highlighted them somewhere. You should have done that last lesson. That's extract number 1, which is basically describing to us and we'll agree with the question that the reason they abolished the slave trade was the work of the nonconformists. Extract number 2 will give a different perspective, and in this case actually gives a mix of two, which is the work of Equiano, the work of an individual, and also towards the end the economic boycott of the sugar plantations. So it kind of throws in an economic factor there as well. So there's lots to extract, lots to develop within both of these extracts. So as I said previously, these are our 4 main arguments, and really you need to include as many of these as possible within your essay question. Obviously in the exam, with the time that you have available, which is about 50 odd minutes, I don't doubt whether you'll be able to do all 4, but I think for practice purposes for us today or this week, it's worthwhile you doing all 4 so you're absolutely clear about all of them. So a little reminder of the marking criteria. So I think our knowledge is going to be good because obviously you've got the book. I'll talk about the structure in a minute. Remember at the end of every paragraph to try and analyse back to the question about, was this a reason to abolish the slave trade? I'm going to give you a few little tips about the judgment. I think that's the main area to focus on and improve. So you should have this to hand. If you obviously haven't completed it, make sure you use the page reference numbers there to just focus and create a mind map about all the key points and clarify any things you're unsure about. For example, decline thesis or the role of Napoleon or whatever it is. So go back and look at that. So this is the structure. Now, this is what I'd recommend. Do a very, very brief introduction. And your first paragraph is going to be obviously about what comes up in extract number 1, which is, as I've already said, about the role of nonconformists. So use your knowledge. Remember to extract, literally lift certain sections, small sections from the extract to back up a point that you're making. So you've got to do a mixture here of knowledge and making sure you're extracting information from the paragraph. Logically, therefore, your next paragraph will be about extract number 2 and do the same. So obviously develop your knowledge about Equiano and the economic side of things. And there's lots you could go into there. You'd obviously talk about Clarkson and all the rest of it. And then obviously a third paragraph could be another argument, it could be world events and other things going on there. So it's a pretty clear structure. And what will happen in your exam next year, or is it this year? I don't know what it is anymore. No, next year. You'll just kind of reassemble the paragraph. So it's a really nice question for us to be able to answer. The key thing is the criteria, and I keep saying the same things. Make sure you're establishing criteria, whether that's long-term, short-term, or ESP, economic, social, or political. And then we're going to do a little bit of work on that now. So, history is really all about judgment. It's not about conclusions. Conclusions are kind of GCSE. You are making a judgment about what you think. So, why did Hitler rise to power? You could argue any of these 3 things. Was the Depression, it was his personal appeal, it was the organisation, the Nazi Party. None of those are correct, or incorrect, or correct. It's about your personal opinion. Also, Liverpool. Yep. Why have Liverpool been so successful? There's lots of different reasons. The manager, the players, the money they've had invested in the club, etc., etc. The reality is it's all of those things, and it's just about you being strong enough and really giving some criteria to establish and come up with a judgment from one of those 3 things. And it's the same thing with history. So what I want you to do is, I've broken it broken it down into each individual paragraph. So within each individual paragraph, within the nonconformist Christians, was it the Enlightenment movement? Was it the role of the Quakers? Was it the evangelical Christians? And it's worth kind of breaking it down into these kind of mini sections. So, for example, if you wanted to use long-term, short-term, you could say, the impact of the Enlightenment movement was the long-term, was the rational thinking. And you need to go back in the book and sort of develop that a little bit more. What was the impact of the Quakers? Well, the long-term was their kind of religious beliefs kept them going over this huge period of time, over the 20-odd year period. And obviously short-term was their belief in the inner light, and they're wanting to kind of convert people. Kind of the same with the evangelical Christians. So by doing this simple process, a long-term, short-term, you can probably narrow it down, and probably, Enlightenment was important, but it wasn't as important as the Quakers or the evangelical Christians. And you need to, decide which one was more important, determination or the inspiration to individuals. Let's look at the individuals themselves. So Clarkson, Wilberforce, Equiano. That's really difficult to try and decide between the three of them, because they were, just as important as each other in totally different ways. But if you wanted to use long-term, short-term, or you could use ESP, it's totally up to you. So Clarkson, remember, was important because he did demonstrations, he was quite influential. Equiano was his personal story, and obviously Wilberforce was the only one out of the three that could actually stand up and propose laws. So it's up to you to decide. There's no right or wrong answer, but as long as you can establish the criteria and explain it. So if you can do the same for the American Revolution, Haiti, Napoleon. So the thing with the American Revolution was, I think even today, America, even with Trump, is the land of the free, and it kind of inspires people with its ideas of liberty. Haiti, the uprisings gave inspiration to other plantations to rise up, and Napoleon was important because it kind of led to this kind of anti-French sentiment in Britain, which eventually led to the abolition of slavery. So again, either of these things are important, but which one do you conclude to be the most important? Again, go back to the economic stuff. Adam Smith, it became too risky or planted debt. Again, summarise that there. So if you can do that for today, just go through those judgment things and make sure you're clear in your own mind about which one was more important than the other by using the criteria. Later on in the week, we're going to have a go doing the question itself, which is this question here, using this structure. So hopefully that's fairly clear. It's quite difficult to teach this, obviously, online. Any queries, questions, etc., just email me. Thank you. Have a good day.